of Basic Education says the majority of public schools in the country have the required infrastructure for the provision of water and electricity. It, however, says infrastructure is a moving target due to maintenance and destruction of schools by natural disasters, among others. The department expressed concerns about those remaining in very poor conditions, which can be deemed unsafe if there is no improvement.
And so it is heartwarming that 90% of schools are in either a fair or a good condition. But there's still 8%, and 8% of over 24,000 schools is a lot. And so to have 8% of schools in a poor condition is something that we really need to work hard towards. And 2% in a very poor condition is still too large a number, because there are still children who go to those schools.
Gwarube says the department has eradicated schools built out of inappropriate infrastructure, adding that the 2018 backlog for the eradication of pit toilets has been reduced and there is access to sanitation.
The conditions of our schools in the dawn of democracy were in a very dire state. Many of our schools, especially in rural areas, some of them were built in mud, some of them did not have access to water and electricity. And some of us seated in this meeting, we know this from experience, that the schools we went to versus the schools that we visit now are two different scenarios.
The department says thousands of schools still require additional classrooms at a cost of about 32 billion rand. Lula Amamatya, SABC News, Parliament.
Now, to expand more on the conversation, we're joined now by SADTU's media officer, Nomusa Cembi. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, we heard the minister say about 90% of South African public schools are in a good condition. What is your reaction?
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers. We tend to disagree with that view, because in February and March this year, we conducted an online survey amongst our members where we received 4,387 responses. We are asking our members about the conditions that they work under. And what we got from the report was that 60% said the conditions in their schools, or classroom conditions or infrastructure, was good, and then the 40% said conditions were bad. Others said they were fair. So we cannot really say that 90% from our survey and what our members confront every day, we cannot say that 90% of our schools are in a good condition. And another issue that the members raised in the survey was the issue of toilets and overcrowding. So it is quite a concern, and the condition of toilets and the number of toilets, the conditions were not good, and also the toilets were fewer, and also the classrooms. There's an issue of overcrowding in our schools. The classrooms are not enough.
Yeah. As you talk about toilets, I mean, it brings us to the topic of the eradication of pit toilets in schools, which remains a crucial issue. The history of school sanitation in South Africa itself has been marred by the tragic loss of young lives due to the unsafe pit toilets, and of course missed deadlines and tragic deaths have been part of the ongoing struggle to provide safe, dignified sanitation. As we try and, bring some middle ground to the reality on the ground, where do you think the loopholes are? If we're hearing 90% and you're saying, no, it actually is a lot worse than that. The struggles are still there, and evidently so.
We believe that government needs to put in more funding to really look at the issue of building schools, ensuring that we have enough classrooms, because what our members see on the ground is not really what the department is reflecting. As I said earlier, from our survey, we could say that 60% schools were from our survey were in a good condition, but then 40% were in a bad or fair condition.
The minister spoke a bit about the delays when it comes to pit latrines and saying that the projects were delayed in parts of the Eastern Cape and KZN because of the inclement weather. I mean, pointing the finger at heavy rains and flooding and roads being washed away in rural areas. And now, the deadlines have been removed. What are your thoughts around this? The department, is it signaling its willingness to tolerate these conditions indefinitely? What is your view on that?
We cannot blame these conditions existed even before the changes in the weather. So I would say the climate conditions have worsened the situation, but we cannot blame the climate conditions for this. We had these experiences. We've been having this for years and years and years. So we cannot say it's just the climatic conditions. The department needs to do more because these things have been existing even before these conditions came into place.
And in fact, some critics have argued that making grade R compulsory is going to deepen the crisis because more learners will be added to an already failing system in terms of sanitation, that is, as it's been deemed compulsory.
Yes, but the department should have put in place resources to ensure that those grade R learners are accommodated. When legislation is put in place, we expect that there should be financial resources put in place to accommodate for those changes. So, but we cannot say that we should not have the law in place just because the conditions are not viable. Government has the responsibility to ensure that conditions are in place for what is there in the law to be implemented.
And very lastly, before we let you go, I mean, government says 90% of South African schools are in good condition. You're saying, according to your research, only 60%. How are you going to now address your concerns with the minister to ensure that, there is some sort of accuracy, because you're reflecting what your members are seeing on a day-to-day on the ground?
As a union, we do engage with the department now and again. We have structured meetings that take place now and again. We are going to raise this in the meetings that we have with the Department of Basic Education.
Very well. Perhaps let's leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for weighing in on the conversation. Leaving it there with with Nomusa Cembi, who is SADTU's media officer, saying there are some contradictions there. 90% of South African public schools